Hey guys, tonight we step into the heavy stillness of a damp, coal-smudged alleyway. You feel the air push against your chest like thick wool. The cobblestones under your feet are slick with something you'd rather not name. From every side, the buildings loom in tall, soot-streaked brick walls pressing in with narrow windows squinting down at you. Overhead, a tangle of blackened laundry lines cuts across the low gray sky, and a chimney breathes out a steady plume of smoke that never quite dissipates. This is Victorian London. It is not romantic. It is not elegant. It is not clean. The smell strikes you before anything else half burning. Coal-wet horse, boiled cabbage, sweat and rotting straw, all swirling in a breeze that feels like breathing through a wool scarf soaked in ashes. You take one breath and your tongue tastes iron. Your teeth ache cold. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to leave a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge forward, one foot landing unevenly on the cobblestones, the other sliding into a shallow puddle of gray water. That's not rain. That's runoff. A mixture of wash water, spilled ale urine, and coal ash. It seeps through the seams of your boot. You wince, but you don't stop walking. To your left, a brick wall sweats with damp. Moss crawls upward between cracks. Blackened drain pipes spit occasionally into iron gutters that snake their way between steps and cellar doors. You glance down and catch the glint of rat eyes. They do not run. Above windows are almost always closed, stuffed with rags or thick glass that has long since turned opaque with filth. Occasionally, a face peers down at you, pale, round, unmoving. Then it slips away. The smog is dense today. It's called a pea souper. Not for its color, it's more gray-green than yellow, but for its consistency. You could scoop it with a ladle. It clings to your skin, dampening your clothes and eyelashes. Visibility is measured in inches, not feet. You hold a hand out, and the fingers fade into murk. You're on your way to the market. Not that you expect much. The stalls are open air, but covered with tarps. Every surface is damp. You pass a man hunched in a doorway with a stained cloth around his head and hands in his pockets. He doesn't move when you pass. Could be sleeping. Could be dead. Victorian London runs on coal. It heats the houses, powers the steam engines, runs the factories, and fuels the railway that growls overhead every morning. It also chokes the air. The coal smoke combines with fog soot and other chemicals to create the famous London smog, thicker, darker, and more suffocating than anything found in the countryside. Historians still argue whether the increased urban coal consumption during the Industrial Revolution or natural climate conditions played the larger role in these frequent smog events. You cross the street, no crosswalk, no traffic light. You simply wait for a lull in the carriages and horses. The wheels cut deep ruts in the muddy road. The mud is brown, yes, but streaked with green and black, and dotted with pebbles straw, and once a small boot. Probably a child's. As you step into the market lane, voices rise around you. Someone's shouting about fish fresh today, caught yesterday. Another is pushing potatoes dirty and mealy. A woman with a red shawl holds up a bunch of bruised apples. A penny the pear, she cries. Her voice cracks and disappears into the fog. You turn to look behind you. Nothing but a wall of smoke. You are isolated even on a busy street. Your eyes water. The smog isn't just a nuisance. It causes actual health problems: chronic bronchitis, asthma, pneumonia. Children, the elderly, and laborers are particularly at risk. There are stories of entire neighborhoods falling ill after days of thick fog. And yet, there is no warning, no alert system, no masks. You pull your collar up and keep walking. Past the fishmonger, the street slopes downward. Rainwater and worse flows in trickles along the edge, soaking into every crack. The gutters here are shallow but full. The stench sharpens. You step aside for a delivery cart, a low wooden platform pulled by a shaggy horse with a gray glazed stare. The wheels hiss as they cut through the muck. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in a shop window. Your face is streaked, eyes red, lips cracked, hair limp with damp. That's normal. A normal morning. On a street corner, a small boy, barefoot, ragged, holds out a dirty hand. He says nothing, just looks up at you with hollow eyes. You shake your head. You have nothing extra today. No one does. The homes here are narrow and tall, 3 to 4 stories of dark brick, each floor housing a separate family or two. The interiors are worse. Peeling plaster, cracked windows, sagging beams, and walls that drip with condensation. Indoor air quality is not a concern here. It's survival that matters. A housemaid in gray skirts brushes past you, carrying a bucket of sloshing liquid. She empties it with a practiced flick into the street. It splashes your boots. You don't flinch. Everyone does it. It's slop water. Better not to ask what's in it. You pause by a lamp post. It's tall iron and cold to the touch. Gas-powered. A lamplighter will come by tonight, climbing with a pole to flick it on. For now, it's just a reminder that night never really leaves. The daylight here is the color of steel, even at noon. Around the corner, a row of iron railings lines a row of basement-level windows. These are the kitchens and servant quarters, dark, constantly damp and alive with the sounds of boiling, scrubbing, and muttered curses. Someone slams a pot. Someone else coughs a string of syllables you can't quite decipher. Probably Gaelic. Many of the servants here are Irish. A cat darts across the alley. Skinny, torn ears fur in patches. It vanishes under a crate. The sun is above you now, technically. You can't see it. You feel a slight shift in temperature. That's all. As you round a final bend, your path is blocked by scaffolding. A building is being repaired or condemned. Hard to say. The workers wear flat caps, vests, and heavy boots. One of them is missing an eye. Another is smoking a black pipe that smells like burnt tar. They nod but do not greet you. And so you step sideways into a narrower path. The air thickens even more. You descend 2 steps into a passage between buildings where the only light comes from flickering reflections off wet stone. A trickle of water runs past your heel. From somewhere far above, a baby begins to cry. You emerge from the narrow passage into a courtyard barely the size of a small room. The walls press in from all sides, 4 stories of worn red brick, blackened by soot, their mortar sagging like an old man's jawline. A wooden staircase zigzags upward on one side, creaking with each footfall. This is your home now, or at least your portion of it. You live in one of the upper rooms, though calling it a room might be generous. You climb slowly, your boots slipping once on the damp step. The railing is splintered and sticky with something you choose not to identify. A wash line sags over your head, heavy with undergarments, shirts, and a bed sheet yellowed with age and mist. Your breath clouds around your face. You reach your door, or more precisely, the warped wooden panel held shut with a latch and a piece of knotted string. Inside, the ceiling is low and the light has no place to land. One window, one stool, one iron bedstead. The bed's mattress is horsehair flattened by years of use. The blanket smells of old onions and coal dust. You set your belongings in the corner, a sack, maybe a small bundle of threadbare clothes and a dented tin cup. Your neighbors are never far. On one side, you hear the rattling cough of someone too young to be so sick. On the other, a baby whimpers. Below, the floorboards creak as someone shifts on their cot. You press your hand against the wall. It's moist, not wet, not dry, just always moist. In winter, the walls sweat and then freeze. In summer, they breathe steam. There's no insulation, no plumbing, just brick and wind, and everything it brings in. The room smells of burned fat, damp straw and that faint tinge of human presence that never quite fades. Your fingers trace the edge of the window pane. The glass ripples old and warped. It distorts the outside world into a watercolor smear. You raise it an inch. The noise doubles, cries cartwheels, a bell somewhere distant. You shut it again. It sticks. The fireplace hasn't been used in weeks. Coal is expensive. You scrape together a few leftover chunks, soft, dusty, and damp, and try to light a fire. The first match fizzles. The second flares, then dies in a puff of sulfur. You manage to catch a bit of kindling stolen from a delivery cart earlier. It smokes heavily before settling into a dull orange flicker. The room fills with smoke before the warmth even registers. You sit on the stool. One leg is shorter than the others. It rocks gently under your weight. Across the room, a shelf holds 3 items, a cracked bowl, a folded paper cone of salt, and a candle stub barely as long as your thumb. You try not to use the candle. Light is for emergencies. In the far corner, behind a makeshift curtain of stitched-together cloth, scraps your bed waits. Shared if you're lucky. Overcrowding is the rule here. 1 room for 6. 2 to a bed. 3 shifts per mattress. People sleep in rotations overlapping each other's warmth. Historians still argue whether the worst of the overcrowding was due to mass rural migration or inadequate housing reform, but the result was the same buildings meant for families of 4 now held 30. You are a drop in a sea of bodies. You change your shirt not to something clean, just something different. The previous one is damp from fog and your own sweat. You hang it over the chair. It will not dry. Nothing ever fully dries. You slide your feet out of your boots and pull off socks that left your ankles striped. A cockroach skitters behind the baseboard. You watch it go. Your thoughts drift to the roof. There's no access from inside, but the boys climb up from the back alley to steal laundry or collect pigeon eggs. Once someone fell. They said he didn't cry out. Just a soft thud, like wet cloth dropped from a height. No one claimed the body. You pick up your tin cup. No water. You'll fetch some later from the pump on the corner if it's not frozen, or you'll melt ice in the fireplace pan. Either way, it will taste of iron and smoke. In the hallway, someone coughs again. It rattles through the walls like a warning. Consumption. That's what they call it. The wasting sickness. Everyone knows someone who's got it. Lips pale, breath short, eventually blood on the sheets. Some say it's the damp that brings it. Others say bad air. Some blame sin. Most just accept it. Your neighbor is named Mrs. Fowler. You've never seen her fully upright. She leans in her doorway most days, wrapped in a brown shawl, her hands always stirring something tea, porridge, bits of wool. Her voice is low and slow, and she once told you she hasn't been outside since her second boy died. You nodded, not sure how to answer. The floor beneath your stool flexes. Someone below is moving. You hear their every step. The entire building breathes, groans, and whispers. It is more organism than structure. You never feel alone here, but you often feel unseen. One wall is decorated with a newspaper page. Someone pasted it to cover a crack. The headline talks about a political scandal involving railway shares. You trace the letters with your finger. You don't know who the man is. You don't care. But the paper is dry, and it makes the room feel less hollow. Quirky fact: some families painted their rooms' walls with blue laundry, bluing Prussian blue, mixed with water, hoping it would repel lice and make the space feel cleaner. You consider it, but blue wouldn't help the smell. As night creeps in, not that the sky ever brightened, the room dims further. You adjust your fire. The coal is almost gone. You consider burning a slat from the stool, then think better of it. The stool is your only seat. You pull the blanket from the bed and wrap it around your shoulders. It holds the heat. Barely. A rat runs along the ceiling beam. Just one this time. Sometimes there are more. You once saw a cat and rat sleep side by side near the fire, too tired to fight. Hunger makes allies of enemies. Down the hall, the sound of a lullaby drifts through the cracks. A tune without words. Just notes hummed over and over until they vanish into stillness. You lie back on your bed, not under the blanket, just on it. You fold your arms across your chest, a pose learned from cold. The mattress is thin. You feel every board below. The candle stub is untouched. It's worth more than its light. The first light of morning filters through the warped glass like weak broth. It doesn't brighten the room. It just makes the shadows move. You sit up slowly, joints stiff from damp and sleep. Your shoulders ache. Your back feels as if someone pressed bricks between the bones overnight. You run your fingers over your face. The skin is dry and gritty. Your eyelids feel lined with sand. The air is cold and still smells of ash. You stretch, but only slightly. There's not enough space for a full reach unless you want to knock over the stool or brush your knuckles on the soot-streaked ceiling beam. The fire is dead. Just a mound of gray powder and a half-burnt piece of wood curling in on itself. You swing your feet onto the floor. Cold shoots up your calves. The boards are damp again. No surprise, they always are. You tug on your socks, still damp from yesterday. No choice. You slide into your boots with a grunt. Now begins the morning ritual, if you can call it that. You step to the corner and grab a cracked basin. You carry it carefully to the hallway where others have already queued for the shared water source. A metal tap sticks out from the plaster wall. It gives a slow trickle, never more than a thread of water, and even then only if you knock on the pipe below it first. You fill your basin halfway. It sloshes as you carry it back. You set it on the floor, kneel beside it, and stare at your reflection. A vague blur of cheekbones, jaw, and hair. You dip your fingers into the freezing water and splash your face. You suck in air through your teeth. There is no comfort in it, only numbness. You reach for the tin box beneath your bed. It contains one thing, a cone of tooth powder, chalky, bitter, and fine like sand. You press a finger into the cone, then rub it onto a scrap of cloth. You wipe your teeth, front and back. The powder tastes like salt and old mint. You spit into the basin. The water clouds. Victorian tooth care was simple abrasive powders, sometimes made of brick dust or crushed bone, were common. Most people didn't brush daily. Some didn't brush at all. Historians still argue whether dental neglect or poor diet played the bigger role in tooth loss at the time. Next, you reach for the soap. It's not soap by modern standards. It's a lump of yellowing lye soap, rough as pumice and stinging to the touch. You run it over your hands, then your face. It leaves a greasy film. You don't rinse. There isn't enough water. In the far corner sits the chamber pot. You glance at it. Full. You carry it out to the landing with one hand and grip the railing with the other. You descend one flight and step into the back courtyard. A row of wooden stalls lines the wall communal privies. Flies buzz even in the cold. You dump the contents, rinse the pot with a ladle of gray water, and return to your room. The stink clings to your hands. You wipe them on your trousers. That helps only a little. Back inside, you wipe the basin clean with a rag and place it upside down on the stool to dry. Breakfast comes next. You reach into the cloth sack near your bed and pull out a hunk of stale bread. It's brownish dense and has gone slightly sour. You break it into pieces. In a small pan, you pour the last of your drippings, a mixture of cooled animal fat and whatever was left from last night's stew. You melt it slowly over what's left of the embers. You dip the bread into the fat, softening it. It glistens slightly. The smell is faintly meaty, but mostly smoky and old. You chew slowly. The crust scrapes your gums. This is your morning meal, bread and drippings. If you're lucky, sometimes a bit of cheese. Maybe tea leaves reused from the day before. A proper breakfast is for those with more money, more time, or both. A fringe fact. Some people in Victorian London started their mornings with ale instead of tea or water. It was considered safer. Weak beer, barely alcoholic, but boiled and stored better than river water. You don't have ale. You have half a mug of boiled water left in a tin cup. You sip it. It tastes of ash. Across the hall, a girl sings to herself while braiding her hair. You can't see her, but her voice rises and falls with the same simple pattern. You've heard it before. Always the same song. You assume it comforts her. Or maybe she has no others. You pull on your coat. It's heavy wool, moth-eaten at the collar. Buttons are mismatched. One pocket hangs loose, mended 3 times already. You loop a scarf around your neck. It smells faintly of smoke and coal. Everything does. You look around the room one last time. Your bed is unmade, your bowl unwashed. Nothing stolen, nothing added. You lock the door with the string and knot it twice. It won't stop a thief, but it tells you if someone has tried. You step into the hallway. A child runs past with bare feet laughing. He carries a broken spoon and something wrapped in cloth. Could be bread. Could be a dead rat. You don't ask. You descend the stairs slowly, your hand brushing the banister. It's smoother than the railing upstairs, worn down by hundreds of hands. At the ground floor, you step out into the fog again. The city hasn't changed. It won't. The air is still sour. Horses pass slowly, leaving steaming piles in their wake. A street sweeper waves a branch broom at a puddle pushing the filth sideways. You sidestep it. Your first errand is to the water pump on Broad Street. You carry your basin, your cup, and your patience. The pump stands like a small monument, a cast-iron shape with a long handle. A line already forms. You nod at the woman in front of you. She grunts. The pump squeaks. Water flows in spurts. You fill your basin. A boy beside you whispers something about someone down the street falling ill. You pretend not to hear. You already know. Illness spreads fast. This part of the city, Soho, or what will become part of it, is infamous for disease, especially cholera. The water carries it, though not everyone knows that yet. John Snow's famous map won't arrive for a few more years. For now, you just avoid puddles and try not to touch your face. Your hands are red with cold. Your knuckles split. You adjust your grip on the basin. A man brushes past you with a bundle of sticks on his back. Another yells for coal. 4 pence the sack. His cart wobbles on the cobbles. You glance upward. The sky is unchanged, colorless, empty. You continue walking, basin cradled to your chest. There are no sidewalks, only areas slightly higher than the road. You avoid the deeper puddles and follow the same track everyone else does, the space between the wagon ruts and the gutter line. You pass a ragged man with missing teeth who mumbles about salvation. You nod once. He keeps talking. Your destination is simple home again. You just needed water. You reach your building just as someone else is coming out. The door sticks as always, and both of you wrestle with the swollen wood before it yields with a groan. You nod. He says nothing. The basin sloshes against your chest as you step back inside. Up the stairs again. The climb feels steeper every day. Your legs burn. Your fingers ache from gripping the metal handle. The cold travels into your wrists. One step creaks especially loud third from the top. You remember that. You always do. Back inside, you shut the door and untie the string latch. You set the basin on the stool. The water swirls gently. You let it settle. It's time to prepare your midday meal, which is not much of a meal. You pull out a lump of something wrapped in cloth. It's bread again this time, a bit moldy on one edge. You scrape that part off with your thumbnail. You tear the rest into pieces and drop them into your cracked bowl. You add a splash of water from the basin. Cold broth, really. There is no meat. Just water and bread, and the memory of flavor. You mix it with a spoon made of tin, bent at the neck. You sit on the bed hunched forward and eat slowly. Every few seconds you pause to listen, to the coughing next door, to the squeak of the hallway floorboards, to the water dribbling somewhere far off. The room groans faintly. Wood shifting, walls expanding, or maybe just settling. As you chew, you remember the noise of the street vendors yelling for customers, the jingle of a muffin man's bell, the hollow bang of a dustbin cart. Some days the noise is comforting. Other days it's like drowning in metal. Now you prepare to go out again. This time to work. You don't have a job with a shop or a factory. You do odd tasks: carrying sacks, sweeping stairs, running errands, sometimes holding a signboard. You never know until you ask. You bundle your coat tighter, wrap the scarf around your mouth. You carry a length of cloth in your pocket to wipe the soot from your eyes. You descend the stairs. Again. Back outside, the light has not changed, still pale gray and directionless. Shadows lie in all directions, yet nothing casts them clearly. You squint. You pass a man selling hot eels from a cart. The steam rises in thick curls. The smell is sharp vinegar and oil. A woman in bonnet and shawl stands nearby nursing a chipped mug of tea. Her boots are wrapped in rags. You turn onto a narrower lane. The houses here lean toward each other like they've given up holding themselves straight. Clotheslines stretch overhead. Underpants, aprons, stockings flutter in the slow air. You knock on a side door. Green paint flaking hinges rusted. A woman answers with sleeves rolled up to the elbows. She eyes you, then nods. She hands you a sack. Flour, maybe, or sand. You don't ask. She says to take it 2 streets over to a stairwell behind the bakery. You nod. You shoulder the weight. It's not heavy, but awkward. As you walk, the sack rubs against your shoulder. You pass more people, some working, some walking, some just sitting. A man leans against a wall, one leg tucked under him, puffing on a pipe with nothing in it. A woman argues with a child about where their shoes went. The child is barefoot. You reach the bakery's alley. You knock on a wooden hatch with 3 quick taps. It opens from within. A pale hand pulls the sack inside. You wait. The hand returns with 2 pennies. No words. You pocket them. That's enough for a small loaf or a half cup of tea later. As you step back into the street, you pass a pair of children playing with a wheel and stick. They laugh without looking up. Behind them, a man coughs into a rag and drops it in the gutter. The cloth lands with a soft, wet sound. Victorian gutters were rarely clean. They carried refuse waste and rainwater in shallow, uncovered channels that ran down the center or along the sides of the street. Many infections spread this way, though. At the time, most people blamed bad air or miasmas for disease. You adjust your scarf and walk again. Past a shoemaker hammering leather in the open. Past a newspaper boy shouting headlines no one can hear. Past a milkman handing a glass bottle through a half-closed door. You find another job. A woman with a buggy needs help across the street. Her wheels are stuck in the gutter. You grab the axle lift and guide the buggy over the stone ridge. She thanks you with a nod and gives you a piece of hard candy. You slip it into your pocket. You might eat it later, or trade it. Hours pass like this, one task after another. Your coat grows heavier with damp, your hands red with cold. You carry wipe knock lift. You avoid puddles. You dodge horses. You breathe in soot. By late afternoon, the city becomes louder. Factory whistles blow. Carriages rumble faster. People rush. More voices. More movement. More urgency. You move with them. You return to your street and enter the narrow doorway. Up the stairs again. Your legs protest. The third step creaks. The fourth groans. The fifth sticks. You reach your door and untie the string. Inside, the room is dark again. No sun entered. No heat stayed. You sit. You breathe. You count your coins. 3 pennies. Enough for bread and tea, perhaps, or coal and nothing else. You decide. You leave again, just for a moment. To the corner shop, a wooden booth with narrow shelves. You buy a heel of bread and 1 scoop of loose tea. The man measures it on a balance scale. He wraps it in newspaper. You return. Again. The routine repeats, over and over. A loop of errand steps and damp walls. Inside, you boil water with what little coal remains. The tea steeps weakly, pale gray liquid. You sip it slowly. It is bitter. You don't mind. You eat the bread with no butter, dry. Your teeth work hard. You chew and swallow. Your stomach doesn't complain. It accepts. The room quiets. The hallway settles. Your neighbor's cough fades into silence. You stare at the window. Still gray. Always gray. You sit still on the edge of your bed, staring at the water basin. The candle stub rests beside it untouched. You think about lighting it, but hesitate. Each inch of wax is an evening's light. Better to save it. You stand slowly. You stretch your arms out and roll your shoulders. Then you move to the window and press your palm to the glass. It's cool and slick with condensation. The world outside remains blurred and pale. The street beyond looks like a smear of charcoal on paper. Your gaze drifts to the pump across the way. You watch a man fill 2 buckets. He wears a hat with the brim drooping soaked through. A child trails behind him. The child holds a smaller pail. They speak to no one. No one speaks to them. As you turn back inside, you feel the ache in your stomach. Hunger never really fades. It just quiets for a while, then stirs again. Suddenly, a sound from down the hall. A door slams. Then footsteps. Then a woman shouting loud, sharp, broken syllables. You can't make out the words. Then a baby's cry. Then silence. You sit again. Your hands are dry and cracked. You pick at a flake of skin on your thumb and watch it curl away. You lie down. The mattress offers no comfort. It is just slightly softer than the floor. You stare up at the ceiling. The wood beams are stained dark, some with drips that have long since dried. You trace them with your eyes, like tree roots or veins. Eventually you sleep. You wake to commotion. Not loud, but definite. Footsteps on the stairs. Quick voices. A knock. Then another. You sit up. It's still gray outside. Still cold. But something's wrong. You open the door and peer into the hall. A boy runs past you, eyes wide, mouth open. No words. You step out. 2 neighbors stand with heads close. One shakes his head slowly. You ask what happened. They say it's cholera. Someone on the floor below Mrs. Cadden, the one with the red kerchief, was taken in the night. Found this morning cold and curled near the hearth. No doctor, just gone. You don't speak. You nod. You return to your room. You sit on the stool. You stare at your hands. You remember the water pump. People drink from it every day. You drank from it yesterday. You wonder how many others have. You wonder how many will. Cholera isn't fully understood yet. Many believe it spreads through miasma foul-smelling air. Others, like Dr. John Snow, will argue that it travels through contaminated water, but that argument hasn't reached the tenements yet. Not here, not now. You pour the remaining water from your basin into the slop jar and set it outside. You don't say why. You just do. You pull your coat back on. You leave again. Outside, the market street is quieter today. Fewer calls. More faces covered with cloth. The fog is thicker than usual, the color of old pearl buttons. The air has weight. You pass a shop with its shutters half closed. A man stands out front muttering about vinegar. He pours it across his doorway. He believes it wards off the sickness. Others hang camphor balls or burn herbs. You walk past them all. You head toward the pump again, but stop short. A crowd gathers around it. A constable argues with a woman who's shouting that the water killed her husband. People push and lean. Some still fill their pails. You turn around. You won't drink that water again. Not today. Instead, you walk toward the back lanes. You know of another pump farther off, less used. The water tastes of iron and moss. You've only used it once. It's slow, but still flows. You arrive and wait your turn. No one talks, just quiet movements. The handle squeaks. The water gurgles. Each person fills their jug and moves on. You return with a single cup's worth. You pour it into your tin. You don't drink yet. You just hold it. Back in your room, the air feels thicker than before, as if it too carries something unseen. You sit at the window and watch the street. You see a man dragging a small cart. On it lies a wrapped body. No cover, just cloth. The man pulls it alone. The wheels squeak against the stone. A fringe fact, during some outbreaks, bodies were collected in carts, especially in poor districts. There were not enough coffins, not enough undertakers. Often, no ceremony, just removal. You close your curtain. You light the candle, just this once. The flame flickers, then steadies. The room glows in amber and gray. You place the candle inside the old bowl to shield it from drafts. You sip your water, slowly. Across the hall, someone begins to pray aloud. The words are soft, nearly a whisper. You listen without reacting. Historians still argue whether the government's delay in recognizing waterborne illness caused thousands of unnecessary deaths. The science existed, but so did pride, class bias, and disbelief. You lie back again. Your blanket covers your chest. You close your eyes. You try not to think about the pump, or Mrs. Cadden, or the cart. You count the cracks in the ceiling instead. You listen for the third stair creak again. You wait for silence. It never fully arrives. You wake before dawn. The candle has burned itself into a pool of wax. You touch the stub. It's cool. A faint trail of smoke curls upward, thin as a hair vanishing in the stillness. The air feels heavier today. Not colder, just more dense. It presses against your chest when you breathe. Outside, the fog has returned. Thicker now. A true pea souper. You barely see the outline of the window frame. You stretch your arms slowly, careful not to disturb the bowl or basin. Your joints ache. Your fingers crack when you clench your hands. You move to the window and lift the edge of the curtain. Everything outside is gone, swallowed by smoke and fog. You pull on your coat, wrap the scarf again, and slip into your boots. You do not eat. There is nothing left from yesterday. You'll find food later somehow. You descend the stairs. The hallway is quiet. A door near the bottom hangs open. A chair rests on its side. You do not go in. Outside, the world feels muffled. Sounds are dull. Shapes blur. The fog is greenish-gray and thick as soup. You walk slowly, hands tucked under your arms. Your destination is the rubbish piles on Half Moon Alley. You've scavenged there before. Rag pickers, bone grubbers, toshers all search the same heaps. It's early enough that you might get lucky. You pass a woman with a sack over her shoulder. Her hair is pinned up in a blue scarf. Her fingers are wrapped in cloth. She nods once. She carries a long stick with a hook on the end. You reach the pile. It steams faintly layers of ash, straw bones, cloth, and spoiled food. The smell is sour. Rotting fruit, cabbage water, soot, and something sharper. You breathe through your sleeve. You kneel and begin to search. Carefully, slowly. Your fingers move through wet fabric, broken crockery, a spoon with no handle. You pocket it. You find half a brass hinge, a bit of leather, a length of cord. These are items you can trade later, maybe to a tinker or a street seller. You glance up and see a boy about 10 feet away. He's lifting a plank of wood, revealing a dead cat underneath. He frowns, replaces the wood, and moves on. In Victorian London, scavengers had many names. Bone grubbers looked for bones to sell to soap makers. Toshers searched sewers for metal. Mudlarks scavenged the riverbanks. Rag pickers hunted cloth. Each had their niche. Each fought for scraps. You pull up a bit of wool, torn and wet, still strong in places. You fold it, tuck it into your coat. It might patch your socks. A fringe fact: some scavengers carried licenses. Others did not. Most were children or elderly. Their work was unregulated, dangerous, and often invisible to authorities. After an hour, you stand. Your knees crack. Your shoulders ache. You wipe your hands on your coat and survey the fog. You count your finds: 3 pieces of metal, 2 cloth scraps, 1 leather strip, and a bent button. You walk. Down the alley past the corner where the rag dealer works. He's not there yet. You pass an open window with cabbage boiling inside. The smell is thick. You pause. It makes your stomach turn. You turn toward the river. The tide is low. You descend to the bank, careful, slow, 1 foot at a time. The mud is soft. Your boots sink slightly. You step around a broken barrel, a piece of rope, and a dead pigeon. A boy near the edge pokes at the water with a stick. You begin to search again. You find a bent nail, a bit of rope, a coin so worn it has no face. You pocket them. The boy asks what you found. You show him the nail. He nods. You climb back up the bank. The mud stays on your boots. You return to your street. You pass a coal cart. The driver yells about half-price sacks. You have no money. You keep walking. At the corner, a woman sells muffins from a tray. She carries them on her head wrapped in cloth. She calls out softly, "Muffins hot, penny each. You do not stop. At your building you climb the stairs. One step creaks, one groans, one sticks. You enter your room. You untie the string. You step inside. You lay out your finds. You wipe the button. You shake the cloth. Your hands are black. You wash them in the basin. The water darkens. You dry your fingers on the edge of your coat. You sit. You listen. A bell tolls somewhere far off. 6 chimes. Your stomach growls. You ignore it. You think of the rag dealer. He may be out now. You gather your scraps. You tie them into a square of fabric. You carry them out. You walk again. Past the pump. Past the stall with apples. Past the man scraping old wallpaper. You reach the dealer. He sits on a stool with a scale. You hand him the bundle. He opens it. He lifts each piece. He nods. He offers you a halfpenny and a boiled sweet. You accept. You walk away. You unwrap the sweet. It's sharp lemon or vinegar. You let it sit on your tongue. It lasts 2 blocks. You return home. The fog has not lifted. The buildings still loom. The streets are still wet. You pass a man leading a donkey cart. It carries firewood, tied with rope. Mud clings to the hooves. You nod. He does not look at you. Inside your room, smells of smoke and damp wool. You sit. You wait. The next sound you hear is a whistle, high, shrill, and distant. It echoes across the rooftops, bouncing off brick and stone like a signal you can't quite interpret. Then comes a second one. This time closer. A factory is calling its workers. It's the sound that marks the rhythm of the city start, stop, break, resume. You stand slowly. Your body doesn't move easily anymore. There's a stiffness in your knees, a tightness in your shoulders. You rub your fingers together. The joints crack. You know where you're going today. The match factory. Not inside, no, not hired, but nearby. Sometimes they need hands to haul crates or sweep the entry steps. Sometimes a foreman tosses a coin for a few hours of hauling. You wrap your scarf twice, tug your coat close, and step into the hall. You don't lock the door. There's nothing inside worth taking. You descend the stairs. The building groans as you pass. At the bottom, you step into fog so thick you lose sight of your hands if you stretch them forward. You walk slowly, feet wide, ears alert. The factory looms a few blocks away. Its red brick walls stretch long and low like a crouched animal. Chimneys stab upward, releasing a steady stream of white smoke that disappears quickly into the larger sea of fog. You approach the side gate. A small group waits there already. Boys mostly. A few older men. One woman with her hair tied back and a shawl wrapped tight around her waist. A bell rings once from inside. A door opens. A man steps out. Gray vest sleeves rolled a clipboard under one arm. He doesn't look up. "Need 6 for lifting," he says flatly. You raise your hand. He points. You and 5 others. You follow him through the gate across a muddy yard and into a low corridor. The floor is lined with rough wooden planks. Your boots clatter slightly as you walk. You pass open rooms where women sit at rows of tables. Their heads are bent. Their hands move fast. They dip sticks into yellow paste, then lay them flat on trays. The smell is sharp, acidic chemical, bitter in your throat. Your eyes sting. Your lips taste sour. This is the smell of phosphorus. The women are called match girls. They work long hours, dipping wooden slivers into white phosphorus paste used to make strike-anywhere matches. It's dangerous work. The paste causes sores, skin irritation, and worse. Phossy jaw, they call it. A condition where the phosphorus eats into the jawbone, causing it to rot. The early signs are pain swelling and a greenish glow in the dark. You try not to breathe deeply. The foreman leads you to a stack of crates. Each one is the size of a footstool and weighs more than it looks. Back entrance, he says. You nod. You lift. The wood bites into your palms. The crate shifts. You steady it and follow the others. You walk down a hallway through a narrow stairwell and out into another yard. You set the crate beside a stack of others, then back again. The next crate, then another. You carry 6 in total. Your hands shake slightly. The foreman gives you a nod. He hands you a coin. Done, he says. You walk out the gate. The fog is no thinner. You blink rapidly, trying to clear your eyes. You head toward the street market. With your coin, you buy bread, a heel of rye, rough and dry. You chew it as you walk. The taste of phosphorus still lingers. As you pass a narrow alley, you see a girl sitting on a crate. She holds her hand under her chin. Her fingers are bandaged. She stares at the ground. You don't speak. She doesn't move. Historians still argue whether match production reform was driven by health outrage or union pressure. The dangers were well known, yet tolerated, especially in neighborhoods with no power to protest. You keep walking. You pass a man pushing a cart of tin pails. A woman calls out from a window. He looks up, nods, and disappears through a gate. Your boots splash through a puddle. At home, you climb the stairs. The third step creaks. Inside your room is unchanged. You set your bread on the stool. You pour the last of your water into the tin cup. You chew slowly. The room fills with the sound of wind pressing against the window. You stare at the basin, then at your hands. Your fingertips are tinged yellow. From the crates, maybe. You rub them on your coat. They do not change. You lie back on your bed. You close your eyes. You hear the factory whistle again, distant now. Then nothing. Just the soft ticking of the wall. You wake to the smell of horse dung. It seeps through the window frame, thick and pungent, mixed with the constant scent of soot and standing water. The combination is unmistakable. You sit up slowly, rubbing your eyes with the back of your hand. The air inside the room is still, but the noise outside tells you the street is busy already. You rise and stretch, careful not to tip the stool where yesterday's bread crust still rests. The walls look darker today. Maybe it's the fog, maybe the damp. You take a deep breath and cough, once low and dry. You pull on your coat, your scarf, your boots, and then head out again. The street greets you with its usual chaos. Horses pull heavy wagons through the sludge that lines the cobbled road. The wheels cut thick lines through the wet grime. Slop overflows from the gutters and splashes against the curbs. Your boot slips once, but you catch yourself on the wall of a building. Your hand comes away with a smear of something dark and greasy. The carriages roll past with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Handsome cabs with their narrow wheels and high seats dart between the heavier carts. Drivers shout, whips crack, horses snort and stomp, their breath rising like steam in the morning air. The street is not paved in gold. It is paved in mud and manure. In Victorian London, thousands of horses moved people and goods through the city. Each horse could produce 20 to 35 pounds of manure per day. Multiply that by the number of animals, and the result is a city ankle-deep in filth. Street sweepers work constantly, but they never catch up. You sidestep a pile as a child runs past barefoot and laughing. The soles of his feet are black. He splashes through a puddle without slowing down. You glance down and check your boots. The damp has already soaked through. Near the curb, a man pushes a wide broom made of bundled twigs. He shoves straw dung scraps of paper and bits of ash toward the gutter. He hums as he works. His jacket is patched at the elbows. His cap is too large. You keep walking. A woman ahead of you lifts her skirt slightly to avoid a stream of dirty water. Her boots are laced tightly, but the leather is cracked. A dog trots beside her, sniffing at every corner. You pass a fish stall. The smell cuts through the manure, sharp, salty, and sour. The fish lie on wooden boards, heads hanging off the edges. A boy splashes water over them from a rusted bucket. It splashes onto the pavement, mixing with everything else. You move past quickly. The city's sanitation is patchwork at best. In the wealthier districts, some streets are swept daily. In places like this, once a week, if that. Night soil men still operate in parts of the city, collecting human waste from cesspits and transporting it out of town. You've seen their carts, and you recognize the smell. Historians still argue whether the worst of the city's sanitation problems were caused more by lack of funding or lack of political will. Either way, nothing changes quickly here. You cross to the other side of the street, waiting between two carts. The horses are restless. One snorts and stamps, hooves clattering on the stone. You step between the ruts quickly. A cab splashes through a puddle just behind you. You feel droplets hit your back. You reach the sidewalk, slightly raised, slightly drier. But even here, the smell lingers. Manure clings to the soles of your boots. You wipe one foot against the stone, then the other. Ahead, two boys argue over a bundle of kindling. One shoves the other. A fist flies. Then it's over. The smaller boy grabs the bundle and runs. The larger one calls after him, voice hoarse. You pass them without stopping. You glance down an alley as you walk. A black cat crouches over a pile of refuse. It pulls something from a bundle of cloth. You look away. You turn left at the next corner, stepping over a gutter that burbles with oily liquid. The surface gleams with color. Rainbow swirls over gray water. A shoe floats past. You walk slower now. The air feels thicker. A man nearby is selling apples, bruised, soft, and coated in soot. He polishes one with a rag and holds it up. You shake your head. He shrugs. You stop at a doorway and lean against the frame. You wipe your hands on your coat again. The grime is ground in now. Nothing removes it. A woman steps from the doorway beside you. She holds a broom and a pail. She throws water onto the step. It washes over your boot. You nod at her. She doesn't nod back. Victorian London is a city of surfaces. Dirt on dirt. Grime on grime. Every wall, every rail, every window is coated in something: coal dust, chimney ash smoke from factories. You know this. You live in it. A fringe fact, some homes near factories were so covered in soot that residents scraped the outer walls to use as pigment for black ink or polish. You've never tried it, but you understand the idea. You walk again. The road hums beneath you. The city breathes, but it never exhales. You pass a carriage stuck in a rut. The driver yells. 2 boys push at the rear wheel. A third watches. The horse waits, eyes blank. You step around a pile of broken crates. Something inside buzzes. You don't look closer. You reach your street again. The climb home is slow. Your legs feel heavy. Your boots squelch slightly. The stairwell smells of wet plaster and stale meat. You know which step will creak. You reach your door, untie the string, and step inside. You sit on the bed. You unlace your boots. You place them near the hearth. You breathe. The room is cold. The window fogs as you exhale. You stare at the basin. You do not rise. You stay seated for a long time. Your hands rest on your knees. The muscles in your back soften, then tighten again when you shift. Your coat is still damp from the fog. You can smell the street on it, manure smoke, and the sour sting of coal tar. The scent fills the room like a second body. Outside, the light fades further. Not into night yet, but into that permanent gray that signals the day's end in London. You rise slowly and walk to the window. The glass is coated with condensation. You wipe a small patch with the edge of your sleeve. It clears enough to show you outlines, chimneys, rooftops, figures moving slowly in the mist. The fog is thicker now than it was this morning. It clings to the city like soaked wool. Lamps glow weakly from iron posts along the street, their halos blurred and fuzzy. You know what this is. Another pea souper. Not just fog, not just smoke, but something in between, heavy yellow tinged sulphurous. It rolls in from the Thames and mixes with factory smoke chimney soot and horse dust. It's not clean. It never was. You sit again. The air in the room has thickened. Your throat itches. Your eyes water slightly. You blink slowly. The smell of gas and ash sits inside your nose. You can taste it on the back of your tongue. You reach into your sack and pull out your scarf again. You tie it across your nose and mouth. Not for warmth, for breathing. You strike a match and light the candle. The flame flickers weakly, fighting for air. Its light bends in the fog, casting long, trembling shadows against the wall. You open the door. The hallway is darker than usual. Someone has lit a lamp at the far end. It glows orange, barely touching the walls. You step out. Each floorboard creaks. The wood beneath your boots groans. You descend slowly. Outside, the fog envelops you instantly. You can barely see the railings across the street. The lamplight reaches only a few feet in every direction before vanishing into thick gray. Voices are muffled. Shapes become shadows. Sounds come without clear direction. A man coughs nearby. A carriage wheel clinks slowly over the stones. A woman whispers a name you do not recognize. You walk slowly, keeping one hand on the wall beside you. The cobblestones are slick. You step carefully, You pass a lamplighter. He walks with a pole touching each lamp with a practiced hand. The flame catches flares and settles. He moves on without looking at you. The gas lights were installed to push back the dark, but they lose to the fog. In 1873, one of the worst fogs on record fell over the city, lasting days and killing hundreds. Breathing became painful. Movement slowed to a crawl. But even on an average day, the air stung. Historians still argue whether the increase in fog-related deaths in the late Victorian era was due more to industrial output or the rapid expansion of coal use in private homes. Both likely played a role. You round a corner. A shop window glows faintly with candlelight. Inside, a man arranges loaves on a wooden shelf. His back is turned. His apron is white, though the edges are already smudged. You enter. The warmth strikes you first, then the smell yeast flour. Something faintly sweet. It's almost too much. The man turns. You nod. He gestures to the bottom shelf. That's where the broken loaves are kept. Uneven crusts, ends of the batch. You point to one. He wraps it in paper. You hand him your coin. No words are exchanged. You step back outside. The warmth leaves instantly. The fog is denser now. Your breath joins it. You can barely see your feet. You follow the edge of the buildings. One hand on brick, the other holding the loaf. You pass a woman guiding a child. Their heads are low. They move like ghosts. You pass a man sitting against a wall. He says nothing. He does not move. You reach your door and fumble with the latch. You step inside. The stairwell is darker now. You climb slowly. You untie the string and enter your room. The candle still burns. The flame flickers harder now. It bends left, then right. You set the bread on the stool. You remove your scarf. You cough once, then again. You sit. You chew a piece of bread. It is dry but soft inside. You chew slowly. The air presses against your chest. You hear nothing outside now. No wheels, no hooves, no voices. Just the room, just the flame, just your breath. A fringe fact, some Victorian Londoners sealed windows with newspapers soaked in water and paste to keep the fog out. You think of doing the same. You lie back on your bed. The candle glows against the wall. Your breath is shallow. You stare at the ceiling until the fog fills the room completely. You wake to silence. Not true silence, but something closer than usual. The fog has muffled the outside world, soaking up the sharper sounds. You sit up slowly. The light filtering through the window is dim and pale, as if the sky hasn't quite decided to begin the day. Your throat feels dry. Your mouth tastes like metal. You swallow, but it doesn't help. The room is cold, and the air still carries that familiar weight, part moisture, part smoke. You wrap your coat tighter before standing. You cross to the window and peer through the pane. You can barely make out the street below. Movement flickers past, low and shadowy. Something rolls by. Then it vanishes. You decide to go out. You pull on your boots, then your scarf. You wrap it twice, covering your nose and mouth. You take your cap from the stool and place it low over your ears. You check your pockets, bread crust, string, half a stub of chalk. You head down the stairs. The building creaks and shifts around you. You step over the familiar broken stair duct under the sagging beam and reach the street. The fog is thicker today. It's not just a haze, it's a wall. You squint into it, holding close to the buildings. Lamps glow faintly along the edge of your path, but they illuminate only their own iron frames. Beyond that, nothing but fog. You move with care. A horse passes, hooves slow and hollow. You smell it before you see it. The sour warmth of dung sweat and leather harness oil. Then the driver, a shape, a cough, the creak of a seat. You move into the center of the street. You pause. Then you hear the light clop of hooves and the soft jingle of tack. A handsome cab emerges, tall wheels, arched roof, curtained sides. Its driver barely visible. You flag it down. The cab slows. You open the small door and step inside. The seat is damp. The air is warm with the scent of old upholstery and coal smoke from the driver's coat. The cab lurches forward. You sit with your knees drawn slightly up. There's no cushion. Just a wooden bench lined in torn fabric. Outside, the fog swirls. You ride slowly, listening to the wheels grind over uneven cobbles. Each bump travels up through your spine. The lantern fixed to the front of the cab offers no guidance. It merely casts a faint glow into the mist. You hear voices outside, though you see no mouths. A child cries once. A man shouts something about a lost parcel. You keep still. The cab stops near the edge of Fleet Street. You step out. You pay the driver. He tips his cap. His face is gray with soot. You walk again. This part of the city is busier normally, but today the fog has reduced it to shadows and echoes. You keep close to the edge of the walkway. Your boots scuff over damp stone. You feel your way along iron railings. They are slick with condensation. You pass a man selling newspapers. His cart is lit by two small lanterns. The headlines are bold but smudged. You don't stop. A pickpocket slips past you, a whisper of fabric and hurried footsteps. You clutch your coat tighter. Pickpockets are common here. In the fog they flourish. Quick hands, quick feet, no faces. Historians still argue whether organized crime or simple desperation drove the rise in petty theft during this period. For most, the answer hardly matters. You keep walking. A man bumps into you, then mutters something low. His breath is sour. He disappears into the gray. You turn off the main road into a side street. Narrow, crooked, empty. Gaslight flickers overhead. Shadows twist on brick walls. You move toward a door you know, a back entry to a workhouse kitchen. Sometimes they give out scraps around this time. Not every day, not to everyone. You knock twice, then once more. A woman opens the door. Her eyes sweep you once. She holds out a small parcel wrapped in cloth. You take it. You nod. She closes the door without a word. You walk to a nearby crate, set the parcel down, and unwrap it slowly. 2 crusts of bread. A sliver of cheese. You chew with care. The cheese is sharp, salty. The bread hard, but not moldy. You eat slowly. You glance down the street. Nothing moves. just fog. A fringe fact: during particularly thick pea soupers, people were known to carry torches or hang onto ropes strung between buildings to avoid getting lost even in familiar neighborhoods. Today feels like one of those days. You rewrap the cloth, tucking it in your coat. You walk back toward Fleet Street, listening for the sound of hooves or wheels before crossing. You hear only your own breath. The fog lifts slightly by the time you reach the market stalls. Vendors are just now setting up. One man pulls a canvas cover over his produce cart. Another stacks onions into rough pyramids. A woman sweeps out the front of her tea shop. You pass them all. You stop at a lamppost, rest your hand against the cold iron. You breathe in. It stings. The fog is heavy with smoke from coal stoves, steam from gutters, and the wet stink of uncollected trash. You exhale. You walk back toward your building. The cab route saved your feet, but your legs ache from the cold. You pass a girl selling matches from a box. Her fingers are blue. You hand her the cloth from your parcel. She nods. You don't speak. Back on your street, the buildings lean in again. The fog settles between bricks and under eaves. You climb the stairs, each one familiar. You open your door. You sit. The candle has burned halfway down. You strike a match. It flares. It catches. You set the flame in the dish. You watch it sway. Outside, the fog continues to press. Inside, the silence returns. The flame in your candle leans slightly to one side, tracing the path of a faint draft, sneaking through the window frame. You watch it move, breathing with the rhythm of the room. The fog outside presses on the glass, distorting the faint lamplight into warped halos. You sit quietly, feeling the warmth of the fire fade inch by inch. There's nothing left to burn. The last bits of coal were used yesterday, and your fingers are too numb to strike another match. From down the street, a strange sound rises. It begins faintly, like metal scraping wood. Then it becomes sharper, closer, rhythmic. A bell. It's the cry of the rat catcher. You stand and pull on your coat again. Curiosity moves your feet as much as habit. You descend the steps, pausing on the fourth stair as always. It sticks. Outside, the fog has eased just slightly. You can see a few doors down. Shapes become people. Footsteps echo. The rat catcher stands at the corner, holding up a wire cage. Inside, the rats squeal and claw at each other. His jacket is streaked with soot. His sleeves are rolled, revealing rope-burned wrists. A burlap sack lies beside him, full and squirming. He shakes the cage once and shouts, "Clean streets, no plague. Halfpence a tail." Children gather near him. Some laugh, others just stare. One boy holds a broom handle like a sword. He taps the cobblestones in front of him. You keep to the edge, watching silently. Rat catching is both necessary and gruesome in London. The city's waste invites rodents. They flourish in cellars, sewers, behind ovens, and under floorboards. Professional catchers roam the streets using dogs' traps and even their bare hands. One curious detail: some rat catchers sell their captures to blood sport events, rat baiting pits where terriers kill dozens of rats in timed matches. Gambling men cheer while lanterns swing overhead. You've never been, but the sounds carry at night. Historians still argue whether rat baiting served as legitimate pest control or was simply a grotesque spectacle cloaked in civic duty. In truth, it was both. You turn away from the scene. A man passes with a tray of penny dreadfuls, thin booklets printed on cheap paper sold for 1 penny each. Their covers are lurid skeletons, criminals, monsters. He shouts about spring-heeled Jack Sweeney Todd and the demon barber. You glance at the covers but keep moving. The stories are wild, full of horror and cheap thrills. But for many, it's the only fiction they ever read. Children share them in alleys. Workers read them by candlelight. Every now and then someone mistakes a tale for truth. The street grows louder. A group of men gather outside a public house. Their laughter bounces off the walls. One sways slightly. Another leans on the rail. The door stands open, releasing the thick smell of gin beer sweat and pipe smoke. A man stumbles out with flushed cheeks and glassy eyes. He doesn't see you. He mumbles something to the air and stumbles into the street. You step aside. You walk on. Down an alley, you pass a small crowd near a boarded-up door. A voice rises inside, strained, theatrical, loud. It's an underground show. Rat baiting. You stand near the edge. A girl slips past you with a lantern, her face hidden by a scarf. Inside the pit is no larger than a washtub. Rats scurry across the floor. A man in a long coat announces bets. A dog waits nearby, alert and panting. You don't go inside. You just listen. A whistle blows. The dog leaps. Cheers rise. Then silence. You move away. The alley narrows. You return toward your block. A match girl sits by the wall. Her fingers are cracked and red. She lights one of her matches and watches the flame. It flares briefly, then dies. She lights another, then another. You pause. You hand her a bit of cloth from your coat pocket. She takes it, then lights one final match with care. The flame dances. You continue on. A group of boys pass you carrying a cage. Inside, 2 rats circle each other. One lunges, the other screeches. The boys laugh. They vanish around the corner. You reach your door. You climb the steps, passing a neighbor coughing violently. You do not speak. You nod once. He nods back. Inside your room, the candle has burned lower. You sit. You think of the rats, of the stories, of the girl with the match. You close your eyes. Your breath is steady. The city pulses faintly through the walls. The candle's stub now casts only a faint circle of light, barely reaching beyond the stool. You sit beside it, still wrapped in your coat, your hands resting on your knees. You can hear the slow tick of the wall clock in the flat above. It echoes faintly through the floorboards like a tired breath. You decide it's time to do laundry. Not because it's Sunday or any particular day, but because the shirt you're wearing hasn't dried properly in 3 days, and the smell has grown sharp enough to disturb even your own dull senses. You pull it off and fold it across your arm. You gather your other clothes, 2 undershirts, a pair of stockings, a kerchief, and tie them into a loose bundle. You descend the stairs. The hallway smells of mildew and soap ash. 2 other tenants pass you carrying similar loads. You follow them to the wash house on the next block. It's a narrow building with a crooked roof and two chimneys that spit smoke into the fog. Inside, the air is thick and hot. Steam rises in columns from large copper tubs set into stone. Women move around you, sleeves rolled, faces flushed from the heat. Water sloshes metal bangs, ringers creak. You find a free tub. You fill it with cold water from the pump and wait for your turn at the stove. When it comes, you carry your pail carefully to the boiler ladle in scoops of hot water and return to your station. You unwrap your bundle. The smell rises instantly. Sweat, coal, river mud, and damp wool. You reach for the soap. It's brown stiff and wrapped in rough paper. You slice off a piece with a small knife and crumble it into the water. It foams slowly, more film than suds. You plunge your shirt into the tub. The water darkens at once. You scrub the fabric against the board wooden slats with deep grooves worn from years of use. You press with your knuckles, dragging the shirt back and forth. Each stroke sends droplets onto your face and arms. The soap stings. The wash house echoes with sounds, the slap of wet fabric, the hiss of boiling water, the rhythmic turn of mangles. One woman sways gently as she works, humming to herself in an old tune you don't recognize. Another yells across the room in Irish, waving a rag like a flag. A girl near the corner wrings out a pair of stockings, her hands red and raw. You finish the first shirt. You wring it by hand. Then the stockings. Then the kerchief. You pause only to stretch your fingers. They cramp from the cold even in steam. You rinse each item in fresh water again, darkened after only moments. Then the wringer. It stands near the center of the room, two heavy rollers turned by a side crank. You feed your shirt through, careful not to let it twist. You turn the handle slowly. The rollers press together with a soft squeal, forcing water out in a thin stream. Your shirt emerges flat and damp. You repeat with the stockings. Then the kerchief. You gather your laundry, fold it, and carry it back into the fog. The cold slaps your face. Your arms steam faintly. You return to your building. You climb the steps. You untie the door. Inside, the room is damp again. The walls sweat faintly. The candle has burned out. You drape your clothes across a rope line you tied between two nails weeks ago. The fabric sags slightly. Drops fall from the sleeves onto the floor. You sit. You feel the ache in your wrists, your shoulders, your back. You don't complain. You simply breathe. Laundry was rarely a weekly event in Victorian homes. It was hard labor, hot, wet, and slow. Most poor families had no soap to spare, and many wore the same garments for days or weeks. Cleanliness was a luxury. Historians still argue whether laundry work contributed more to women's exhaustion or their quiet power. In silence they scrubbed. In steam they planned. You chew the last bite of bread left from the parcel. It's hard now. You let it soften in your mouth. Outside, the fog thickens again. You hear the squeal of cartwheels, then the muffled ring of a bell. Someone cries out. You rise and cross the room. You close the curtain. You lie on the bed without removing your coat. The room smells now of soap and smoke. You listen to the sound of a drip from the ceiling. It falls into the corner every few seconds. A steady beat. You count. You do not stop. Your eyes open slowly to the dim outline of your window. The fabric you washed hangs still sagging slightly with moisture. It has not dried overnight. The shirt's shoulders glisten with beads of water. The stockings remain heavy, their toes dripping into the basin below. You sit up. The blanket slips from your shoulders. Your stomach tightens. Hunger. You try to ignore it. You stare at the floor. A thin line of coal dust has gathered along the baseboard just under the curtain. It wasn't there yesterday, or at least not in that shape. You follow it with your eyes past the stool under the cot where it vanishes in shadow. Your body feels slow, but you rise anyway. You move to the door, open it softly, and step into the hallway. There's movement, voices whispering. You hear someone call out, then retreat behind a door. You descend the steps with care. Outside, the air is gray again, but not thick. Not yet. The fog will return soon. You turn left past the corner where the gas lamps flicker weakly. You walk without speaking. You pass a pair of boys playing with a hoop and stick. Their laughter is brief, swallowed quickly by the stillness of the morning. You reach the end of the row where the street narrows. A crowd gathers. You blend in quietly, keeping your eyes low. Today is bread and spirit rations at the workhouse gate. You stand with the others. Older women, barefoot boys, a man missing a coat. You keep your arms folded tight. The door opens. A clatter. A rustle. A woman with red sleeves steps out holding a basket. She calls names. You wait. Yours is not called. Still, she hands you a crust. Not warm, but solid, dense. You nod. She drops a second item into your hand, a tin cup half filled with something pale. Gin. Weak, watered down, but warm. You sip. It burns the back of your throat gently. You walk away. The street behind you begins to hum again. A bell chimes from the nearby church. The baker shovels ash from his oven. You pass a man with a limp carrying a sack of coals over one shoulder. The spirit lingers in your belly. Your thoughts slow. You turn toward one of the old gin palace's structures meant to be beautiful. Tall glass windows, gaslight chandeliers, mirrored walls reflecting gold and glass. You've never gone inside. You're not allowed. Not in your clothes. Not with your face. You pass its doors and they swing open briefly. Inside, laughter rises. The scent of anise juniper and pipe tobacco flows out. You walk faster. You head back toward the poorer stalls near the alley where soup is served late in the afternoon. You still have the crust. You take a bite. It's hard. You chew. Your jaw aches slightly, but it quiets your stomach. You sit on a step near a butcher's wall. The bricks are warm from the morning fires. You watch a line of children pass, some barefoot, others with their shoes tied around their necks. They carry sacks hoping for bones or scraps. A fringe fact, some Victorian butchers sold used bones to the poor, not for eating, but for boiling. The resulting broth was thin but full of salt and heat. One girl smiles at you, then vanishes into the door. You close your eyes. Your head rests against the wall. You hear the sound of iron wheels turning. Someone passes with a cart full of bread crusts and meat ends. You rise again. You follow it, keeping to the shadows. The cart stops at the charity house. You wait until they begin serving. You're too far back in line, but someone ahead drops a chunk of boiled potato. You pick it up, brush off the soot, and eat it. The taste is mild, slightly sour, but warm. You walk toward the river. The breeze carries the scent of sewage salt and smoke. You pause beside a low wall and watch the water pass below. It flows slowly. Greasy film on the surface. Rags stuck to the pilings. Mud lapping at the stone. In Victorian London, river pollution reached dangerous levels. The Thames was filled with human waste chemicals and animal remains. In the hot months, the stench drove Parliament from their chambers. The Great Stink of 1858 forced action, but not before years of illness and death. Historians still argue whether the stink or the deaths were more politically persuasive. You turn from the water. You walk back to your street. A cart blocks the way. The driver steps down, opens the back, and begins to unload sacks. Flour, potatoes, sugar, supplies for the corner shop. You help him without asking. You carry 2 sacks into the storeroom. He grunts and hands you a coin. You nod. You return home. Up the stairs. The 3rd step creaks. Your room is warmer now. You peel off your coat. Your shirt still drips faintly. You sit. You hold the coin in your palm. You set it on the stool. You eat the last bite of bread. You lie back. You listen to the faint hum of the street. You feel the warmth of the potato in your belly, and you close your eyes again. The light that wakes you is dim and angled low, late morning perhaps, or early afternoon. It's hard to tell. In London, especially on days like this, the sun rarely announces itself. The window pane is streaked with soot and moisture. Outside you hear shouting, loud and rhythmic. You rise. You pull on your coat, then the scarf, though it's still slightly damp. You open the door, step into the hallway, and descend without thinking. The shouting grows louder. Outside, the street is filled, not crowded, but stirred. Vendors have taken their places early. One leans against a wagon stacked high with onions. Another balances a wide tray of apples against his hip. Yet another squats beside a crate of salted fish, slapping a wet cloth across the top to keep the flies off. And above all this, the voices, those street cries. They rise like a strange chorus, one high and sharp, one deep and drawn out, another sing-song almost cheerful. Hot pies, knives to grind, fresh herrings 3 for a halfpenny. The sounds bounce between the narrow rows of buildings carried along by the fog like drifting ribbons. You keep walking. You pass a costermonger, a fruit seller pushing his barrow down the center of the road. His wares are piled high, bruised pears, spotted apples, wrinkled grapes. He sings as he goes, not looking up. Any fruit today, any fruit for your mouth. You nod as he passes. He does not see you. Children dart past on the sidewalk. One carries a string of tin cans. Another wears a hat too large for his head and shouts, old rags for sale." They mimic the adults' voices pitched for the echo. You step aside as a chimney sweep brushes past you. He's young, maybe 12, his face smeared black eyes like glass. He carries a bundle of rods and a small shovel. He whistles as he walks a tune you almost recognize. Near the butcher's, a man rings a bell slowly. "Cat's meat," he calls. You glance at the cart. Slices of meat hang from hooks, stringy gray, barely recognizable. Meant for animals. Sometimes eaten by people. A woman buys a piece, wraps it in paper, and disappears into a doorway. A fringe fact: some poor families purchased cat's meat for their own meals. It was often old horse flesh, soaked in brine and dyed for effect. Technically legal, if not truly edible. You pass a knife grinder turning his wheel. Sparks fly as the blade skims stone. His foot pumps steadily. His cap shades his eyes. He hums with each stroke. You pause at the baker's stall. He waves. You point to a heel of bread. He wraps it quickly in paper and hands it over. You offer your coin from yesterday. He accepts without a word. You walk slowly, chewing the crust. It's rough, but fresh. The market continues to stir. A woman shouts, "Pins and needles." A man calls, "New brooms." Strong bristles. A boy with an accordion plays something fast and lurching. You pass a man with a cart of coal. He rings a small bell and calls out the weight of each sack. His cart creaks under the strain. You watch as he stops at a doorway, lifts a sack over his back, and disappears inside. The cries fade slightly as you turn onto a smaller lane. Here the vendors are fewer. A man sells ink from tiny bottles. A woman holds a tray of handkerchiefs neatly folded. A boy carries a box of shoe polish calling black brown or shine step right in. You do not. You keep walking. The fog thickens again as you approach the pump. The water flows slow today. A girl stands barefoot holding a tin pail. She nods as you pass. You nod back. The city is alive with commerce, but silent beneath it. Transactions happen without conversation. Needs are met, never fulfilled. Historians still argue whether the street cries of Victorian London were a form of community or noise pollution. To those living in it, they were simply part of the air. You turn back toward your street. A man is selling paper cones of roasted chestnuts. You pause. You touch your pocket. Empty. You keep walking. At the corner, a woman pushes a barrow full of clothes pegs and scrub brushes. She calls out, "Strong pegs," holds in wind, 3 for a penny. You step around her. Back on your block, the voices fade. The street is quieter. The crates are emptying. The calls grow hoarse. You enter your building. You climb the stairs. Each one greets you the same. Inside your room is still. The bread sits on the stool. You break a piece in half. You chew slowly. You close the curtain. The city continues without you. But you still hear it. The soft cry of muffins hot floats past and then is gone. Later that day, the light begins to shift. You notice it while staring at the ceiling, how the shadows crawl slightly across the boards, how the candlelight changes from sharp gold to soft amber. You rise from the bed and move to the window. You lift the edge of the curtain. Outside, the fog has eased again just enough to reveal motion in the street. You see silhouettes, small ones, quick ones. Children, street children, orphans, mudlarks crossing sweepers, shoeblacks. They belong to no one and report to no one. They live between gutters and stairwells, between warehouse yards and attic spaces. You watch as they gather near the pump. A boy crouches over something shiny in the gutter. He holds it up, inspects it, then drops it into a pouch. You grab your coat and scarf, slip into your boots, and head downstairs. The street door sticks as always. You shoulder it open. Outside, the fog curls gently against the buildings. You follow the sounds of the children. They move like shadows. One climbs a rail, another darts under a cart. They do not speak much, just hand gestures, nods, soft whistles. You follow them. You pass the bakery, now closed. The shutters are half drawn. The smell of flour lingers. They lead you toward the river. The streets slope gently downward. Water gathers in cracks. The gutters are deeper here. The paving stones are uneven, worn smooth by time and wheels and hooves. The children pause near a drain. One boy lifts the grate with a piece of iron. He slides it just enough to reach inside. He pulls out a spoon. He grins. He passes it to another. They keep moving. These are the mudlarks. They search the margins, the riverbank, the drains, the edges of bridges. They look for anything: nails, rope, coins, glass bones, anything they can sell or trade. You follow them from a distance. Down the bank, past the wharf, to where the tide is low. The Thames reveals its underworld. Mud, dark, deep, and cold, but full of things. You step carefully. Your boots squish into the shoreline. The children scatter along the edge, some with sticks, others with buckets. One girl lifts a boot sole from the muck. She shows it to a boy. He nods. You crouch near a piling. You scrape the mud with a broken brick. You find a nail. You find a piece of glass. You find a bit of rope frayed at the end. You pocket them. Above you, gulls circle. The sky is colorless. A bell rings in the distance. The wind carries the scent of brine sewage and coal smoke. One child nearby sings under his breath. You don't know the words. You move farther down the bank. You step over a length of rusted chain. You see something shiny, copper maybe. You reach down. It's a coin. Too worn to read. You pocket it. A fringe fact: mudlarks sometimes found foreign coins lost from ships or pockets. They'd pass them off as rare or cursed depending on the buyer. A few became collectors without knowing it. You continue along the bank until the tide begins to shift. The water rises slowly. The children retreat. You do too. You climb the slope, mud caked on your boots. You pass a boy who holds a bent spoon in one hand and a cracked teacup in the other. He grins. You nod. You return toward your street. The walk is longer uphill. Your legs ache. You pass the meat stall. Empty now. You pass the barrow with old books. The pages flutter in the breeze. You reach your door. You climb the stairs. The third step creaks. Inside, the light has faded. You remove your boots. You set your finds on the stool. The coin. The nail. The bit of rope. You clean them with a damp cloth. They are dull but whole. You lie back. The bed is cold again. Your coat is still on. You pull the blanket over your legs. You listen to the building settle. The boards creak above. The wind taps at the window. You close your eyes. You see the river. You feel the mud pull at your feet. You hear the soft laugh of a child who belongs to no one. The sound that stirs you today is not footsteps or shouting. It is the slow toll of a bell, deep, even, deliberate. Each ring lingers in the walls, echoing through the floorboards. You open your eyes. The ceiling is unchanged. Gray lines of dust trace the seams in the wood. Your blanket is half on the floor. You pull it up, then sit. The bell tolls again. You've heard it before. It's not a church bell. It's not for prayer. It's the undertaker's bell. You rise without speaking, as if the sound alone gave you orders. You dress slowly. Shirt, trousers, coat. Your scarf is still slightly wet from yesterday's fog, but you wrap it around your neck anyway. You descend the stairs, avoiding the third step. Outside, the fog has thinned to a pale veil. You can see a little farther. The buildings across the street are visible again, bricks slick with dew, windows, shuttered chimneys, breathing low. You follow the sound of the bell. It comes from 2 blocks south near a cobbler's shop you've passed before. The street there is lined with wagons today, small wooden carts drawn by quiet horses. Men in black coats move between them. Each cart carries a single item, a pine box. Some plain, some polished, most unadorned. You step closer. On the far side of the street, a group of people gathers around one cart. They speak quietly. One man removes his hat. A woman dabs her eyes. The box is lifted carefully and carried toward a doorway. The door opens. The family disappears inside. Victorian funerals followed many rituals. Poor families often rented mourning clothes and paid for short-term coffin hire before final burial. Black feathers on the horse. Curtains drawn. A few coins saved then spent. You continue walking. You pass a row of boys watching from the curb. One whistles softly. Another tosses a stone at the gutter. They know better than to get close. A fringe fact: some children followed funeral processions, not out of respect, but to collect discarded flowers or dropped handkerchiefs. One girl once found a pocket watch in the mud behind a hearse. You walk farther until the fog thickens again. Near the edge of the square, you see a man polishing a wooden cross. His apron is clean. His hands are rough. Behind him, 2 carts carry new coffins, one small, one standard. You stop briefly. He glances up. He nods. You nod back. Then you walk on. You turn onto a narrower road. A child runs past you barefoot. His clothes are 2 sizes too large. He drags a stick behind him, drawing a long line in the mud. You return to your own street, moving slower than before. The bell tolls again. You step through your door and climb the stairs. The hallway is still. You reach your room. You untie the string latch and step inside. The air smells faintly of dust and smoke. You light the candle. You sit. Your shoes are caked with mud from the street. You remove them carefully. You eat a small piece of bread saved from yesterday. It's dry now. The crust crumbles as you chew. You glance toward the window. The street below is quiet again. The carts have moved on. You close your eyes for a moment. When you open them, the shadows have grown longer. You rise again. You wash your face at the basin. The water is cold. You dry off with a rag and set it to hang over the chair. You change your shirt, just a cleaner one, still worn, still thin. You run a hand through your hair. Today is Sunday. You prepare to walk again, this time not to work, not to the market, but to the chapel. You don't attend every week. Not everyone does. But sometimes on days like this, when the bell still echoes and the fog lifts just enough, it feels right. You descend again. You join a slow stream of people moving in the same direction, men in black coats, women with shawls, tied tightly under their chins, children in mismatched stockings. The chapel is small, brick. The door creaks open with effort. You find a place on the left wall near the back. The service begins. There is no music today, only words. The minister speaks plainly without gesture or flourish. He talks of rest, of toil, of hope beyond the fog. You listen. You do not close your eyes. You do not speak. When the service ends, no one lingers. You follow the crowd outside. The air is colder now. You return to your room. You remove your shoes. You sit on the bed. You lean back against the wall. The candle flickers faintly. Outside, someone begins to sweep the steps. The bristles scrape against stone. Then silence again. You wrap the blanket around your legs and stare at the ceiling. The next morning arrives slowly. You feel it more than see it light that doesn't brighten the room so much as dull the darkness. You lie still for a few minutes, listening to the building settle the wind tapping gently on the window pane. There is no knocking, no shouting, just a low, familiar sound. Hooves. You sit up. From outside comes the slow rhythm of horse hooves muffled by the fog. Not the hurried clatter of a cab or the scrape of a delivery cart. This is measured, even, deliberate. A funeral procession. You stand and walk to the window. The fog thins slightly near the street, pushed aside by the motion of the small cortege. A black-plumed horse leads the way. Its harness is polished, its steps careful and slow. Behind it rolls a closed carriage windows, curtained wheels, nearly silent on the damp stones. The coffin inside is not visible. Behind the carriage walk 3 people, 2 men, 1 woman, all dressed in black. The woman holds a handkerchief to her mouth. You watch until the group disappears into the fog. You remain at the window. Victorian funerals were more public than private. A death was not merely mourned, it was displayed. Black gloves, black veils, black bands around top hats. Even the poor observed these customs in their own way, tying dark ribbons around arms, drawing curtains, pinning crepe to doorways. You sit. Your stool is cold, the fabric on your coat still damp from yesterday's fog. You pull your scarf from the wall peg and wrap it again, mostly from habit. You strike a match and light the candle. Its glow does little to warm the room, but it marks time. You pour water from the basin into the tin cup. You drink half. You set the rest aside. You chew a crust of bread. Dry. But enough. You remember that someone died last night. A man on the lower floor. You didn't know him well. He seldom spoke. Always kept his door shut. They say it was the coughing. They say he hadn't left his room in 3 days. This morning 2 men came, carried him down in a canvas sheet. No one followed. No one spoke. He's gone now. You put your cup down. You think of the street outside. You think of the black-plumed horse. You decide to walk. You open the door. You step into the hall. It smells faintly of vinegar and soap. Someone has tried to scrub the stair rail. The smell is sharp. You descend the stairs slowly. Outside, the air is thick but not yet choking. The fog lies low, curling at knee height, leaving faces clear but hiding feet. You pass a woman placing a black ribbon on her door latch. You nod once. She nods back. Farther along, a hearse waits near another doorway. The driver smokes a pipe. The horses shift slightly. You turn left and head toward the funeral yard. It lies at the edge of the parish boundary behind a stone wall no taller than your chest. The gate creaks open. You enter. The yard is quiet. A few people stand in groups of 2 or 3. One man kneels by a headstone brushing moss from the engraving. The earth is wet. Gravediggers move slowly in the distance, shovels steady boots deep in mud. Their caps are low. They speak little. You pause at the edge of a path. You watch as one coffin is lowered. The rope groans slightly. The minister speaks just above the sound of wind. You don't listen to the words. You just watch. A fringe fact some poorer families could not afford burial in consecrated ground. Instead, bodies were placed in paupers' graves, sometimes with several others marked only by a number or nothing at all. You turn from the ceremony. You walk along a row of older graves, names worn smooth, dates forgotten. Some stones lean, others are broken. Vines creep across many of them. You stop at a stone with no name, only initials, and a year. You touch the edge with one finger. Cold. Still. You walk back to the gate. You pass the black carriage again. Now empty. The driver nods. You leave the yard. You walk back slowly. The fog thickens behind you. You climb the steps. You open your door. The candle is nearly burned out. You sit. You feel the cold settle in your fingers. You breathe. You listen. The hooves are gone. Only your own breath remains. You wake with the sound of 3 knocks, soft but spaced just wide enough to be deliberate. Not a fist. Not urgent. You sit up slowly, your eyes adjusting to the dim candlelight. The wick has burned low again, casting a faint pool of gold across the floorboards. You listen. No 4th knock. Only the quiet creak of the stairwell settling. Then silence. You stand. You move to the door and open it slowly. The hallway is empty. Just the smell of damp plaster and boiled starch. You step outside. Down the hall a door hangs open. Inside a small gathering. 6 or 7 people. They sit in chairs, pulled into a circle. A table stands in the middle, bare, save for 1 cloth and 2 candles. You recognize the space. It belongs to a woman known as Mrs. Hemsley. Widow. Mid-50s. Gray hair always pinned back. Voice always soft. Her room is larger than yours by half a foot. You step closer. Someone looks up, gestures for you to enter. You do. You take a seat in an empty chair. No one speaks. This is not a party. It's a seance. Spiritualism is growing. In Victorian London, the interest in the afterlife is more than religious. It is emotional, practical. Curiosity wrapped in grief. Families want answers. Widows want closure. Parents want to believe their lost children still linger nearby. You sit with the others. Mrs. Hemsley closes the door gently. She snuffs 1 candle. The other remains. Its flame wavers as the door shuts. A silence settles. Then she speaks. Let us open the circle. Everyone places a hand on the table. Palms down, fingers just touching. You do the same. The wood is cold. The room holds its breath. No wind, no sound. just the scrape of chair legs and the distant pop of coals in the hearth. She calls out a name. Thomas. She pauses. Thomas. Are you with us? Another pause. Then, a rattle. The table shifts slightly. A finger lifts. Someone gasps. Then silence again. Mrs. Hemsley speaks slowly. Thomas, if you hear us knock once. A knock. Soft, but clear. The group freezes. She asks a question. Are you at peace? Silence. She asks another. Do you have a message? The table shifts. 3 knocks. Someone's breath catches. You don't move. The air feels colder, though no window is open. A fringe fact, many seances used small devices like spirit trumpets or slate writing boards. Some used glass tumblers or letters on paper. But the most common was this, the table, the circle, the knock. Historians still argue whether seances were sincere attempts to communicate or clever manipulations played on vulnerable minds. The truth lies somewhere between hope and illusion. Mrs. Hemsley asks another question. The knocks continue, slow, even. You count them quietly. 7, then none. The candle flickers hard, then straightens. She exhales. The circle is closed. No applause, no movement, only soft chair legs scraping, hands lower. You step outside the room and close the door behind you. The hallway feels warmer now. The floorboards creak less. You walk back to your door. You untie the string. You enter. The room smells faintly of wax. You sit. You stare at the candle. You do not light it. You do not speak. You hear only the silence the knocking left behind. You lie back, fully clothed. The blanket pulls across your chest. You feel the boards below your spine. You count. 1 knock. 2. 3. But only in memory, not in air. You sleep with your scarf still tied around your neck. When you wake, the candle is spent. A pool of hardened wax coats the bowl. The wick is a curled black thread. No flame, no light, just the filtered gray pressing softly through the curtain. You sit up. You do not rush. Your limbs are stiff again, but the ache feels duller now. Either you've grown used to it, or it has settled deeper. You swing your legs to the floor and stand slowly. The room is still. You eat the last heel of bread from the small cloth pouch. It's hard. You chew slowly. You swallow without tasting it. You walk to the basin. You wash your face with water that has not warmed since yesterday. The cold snaps you alert, but only for a moment. You dry your face with the edge of the curtain. Outside, the street is stirring. You open your door and descend the stairs. You hear the cry before you see it. Tin drums, whistles. 2 pence a cart. A man pushes a barrow filled with toys. Small tin carts, wooden tops, paper kites wrapped tight against damp air. His call is slow and practiced. He sings the prices like a lullaby. Children gather around him, their eyes wide. One boy clutches a coin. A girl tugs her mother's hand. Another watches from a doorway, arms crossed tight against her chest. You pass them and keep walking. Farther down the block, a cart sells tea. Warm milk, too, in chipped mugs, served with a splash of molasses if you ask nicely. You step in line. The vendor pours slowly, wiping the rims with a rag between servings. You hand him your last coin, earned 2 days ago, carrying sacks. He fills your tin cup. The tea is pale brown, thin, but warm. You take a sip and hold the cup between both hands. Around you, the city exhales. A coal cart creaks past. A bell rings from a distant bakery. Steam hisses from a washhouse vent. You walk with the tea in hand, down toward the edge of the park. There's little grass left there, just patches of trampled green and the hard brown dirt worn by boots and wheels. You sit on a bench. The wood is cold. You sip. You watch. Children run past with hoops and wooden horses. 2 boys kick a cloth-wrapped ball. A dog barks once, then disappears behind a fence. A nursemaid walks by pushing a pram. She does not look at you. You finish the tea. You place the tin cup on the bench beside you. You sit without moving. A fringe fact tin toys became more common in the later Victorian years. Cheap to make. Often painted with bright stripes and dots. Little drums, little whistles. Simple joys held briefly. You stand. You walk back toward your street. The fog begins to thicken again, softening the outlines of windows and rooftops. You return to your building. A man is scrubbing the steps with a stiff broom. You step past him quietly. Up the stairs. Your boots leave faint prints on the boards. You reach your room. You untie the string. You enter. The air is still. The window pane is fogged. The basin is nearly empty. You sit. You place the tin cup on the stool. You lie back. You close your eyes. You imagine the tin drum, the child's laugh, the echo of a cart turning the corner. You do not hear the city anymore, only the soft hum of memory. You wake not to sound, but to stillness. It is early, earlier than you usually stir. The room lies in that quiet just before dawn, a grayness not yet claimed by daylight, but no longer night. You sit up without effort. Your breath fogs slightly in the air. It is colder than yesterday. You reach for your coat. You do not put it on. You fold it instead and place it at the foot of the bed. You straighten the blanket. You smooth the curtain. You strike a match and light the final stub of candle. It flares, then steadies. You sit on the stool and stare at the flame. The room is exactly as it has been, damp, dim, quiet. Nothing has changed, but something feels near. You stand and walk to the window. You wipe a small circle in the condensation. Outside, the street is nearly empty. A sweep of soot lines the curb. A single cat crosses slowly from one stoop to the next, tail low. It glances once and disappears. You turn back into the room. You gather your few things, the tin cup, the cloth scrap, the coin you found in the river mud. You set them in a neat row along the shelf. You place your boots side by side near the door. You sit again, hands folded. This morning there is no bread, no tea, no rush, just quiet. A wind taps faintly at the window pane, but it passes. From downstairs, a baby begins to cry, soft, rhythmic, the sound of breath trying to name hunger. Then, a creak of the stair, then nothing. You close your eyes. You think of fog. You think of the pump on Broad Street, the cries of the market, the cold rim of a tin basin. You think of the whistle from the factory, the rattle of the matchboxes, the slippery cobbles under your feet. You think of the street vendors, their voices raised in fading daylight. You remember every cry. You think of the candlelight on the seance table. You think of the black-plumed horses. You think of the Thames, with its cold, oily current, and its secrets buried under centuries of soot and rope and iron. Historians still argue whether those who endured Victorian London survived because of strength or habit, or if they endured only because the days refused to end and so the people kept rising. You rise. You blow out the candle. You tie your scarf once around your neck. You open the door and descend the stairs one last time. The third step creaks. The street is nearly silent. The fog has lifted slightly, and for the first time in many days you can see the line of rooftops overhead, flat, sooty still. You walk to the end of the street. A cart turns the corner, its wheels quiet over the stone. You step aside. You keep walking. The fog follows behind you slow and low like breath held and waiting. You round another corner and disappear into it. The candle has long since burned out. The fog has settled over the rooftops and drifted down to rest between the cobbles. The city lies quiet now, its breath shallow and even. The chimneys do not smoke. The horses do not clatter. The voices are tucked away behind closed shutters and quiet halls. In the distance, a single bell tolls, not for morning, not for warning, just a soft note, a reminder. That time continues even here. You lie back again in your narrow bed, the wool blanket pulled up to your chest. The walls no longer sweat. The air no longer stings. The draft under the door has stilled. There is no laughter in the street tonight. No cries for cat's meat or ribbons or shoe blacking. No match girls. No carts. No whistles. Only the faint tick of the world turning slow and unseen. Your eyes fall closed. Your hands rest still against your chest. The sounds drift farther away, softened, slowed, dimmed by fog and time. The city, too, seems to lean back to exhale just once more, and then settle into stillness. You breathe out. No words, no thought. Only warmth where the blanket rests. Only the memory of footsteps on wet stone. Only the comfort of knowing the candle is spent, the night is full, and nothing more is needed. Sleep.